We're on our way here to zero emissions cars. You know, that's a steam car, and it's water that you can see steaming away from this car. The steam car held the world speed record for a long time at 125 miles an hour in a steam car. Now that took a little bit of building up pressure to do. Well, there we go. I think you probably left your dinner on top of the boiler.
The heck was that?
Well, our steam parade is just slowly finding its way into the arena. They've got to negotiate the whole site to get here from different areas of the showground. So it sometimes takes a little while for the steamers to arrive. But as you can see, we've got the miniatures are doing well. They're represented there with one miniature steam so far, but there's lots more yet to come. And then we have the manned steam wagon. It's MANN, that was one of our native manufacturers here in the UK. For quite a long time, they built some really hard-working steam wagons.
It literally makes its own weather.
Then of course we've got the steam roller following that. So there's the working end of it, but it's all work really. Because this is an agricultural engine now. The Marshall is sitting across the bottom end of the arena. Beautifully presented, Marshall. Steam cars back and running again. I can't remember whether it was a White or a Stanley now that held the record of 125 miles an hour. They were American steam cars. The Americans built excellent steam cars. We never really got the hang of it in this country. We were building steam engines that worked. Excellent agricultural engines like that one you see on the far side of the arena. miniatures now. At least there's another miniature in the arena. I don't know where the first one went to. Back to the Evening Steamrollers again. A regular here at Netley Marsh. Steamroller which is coming right past the penalty point now. You'll see that for Wallace and Stevens. Well, what's so special about that? This is Hampshire. And just up the road is Basingstoke. Not so very far, it's just up the London Road. And that is where the Wallace and Stevens engine works used to be. And not so very far from them was the Tasker's works as well. So you've got two manufacturers of steam cars associated, of steam power associated with Hampshire, plus of course the railways. Here we had our locomotive works at Eastleigh. Now this shows you what can be done with the Sentinel. The Sentinel was without a doubt at all probably the swiftest of the steam wagons.
Sentinels are cool.
And it led the way in many points of design. But it did have an upright boiler, vertical boiler, instead of the horizontal boilers that we have on the other engines which are already in the arena, which you see. With the exception of the red one which is coming round now in the centre there. Well, that's another example there of the earlier Sentinel before pneumatic tyres, because that one on solid tyres legally was only allowed to do 12 miles an hour in the good old days because it was solid tyres. As soon as you could put pneumatic tyres to a steam engine, it brought you back into the same realm as the rest of the road users who could do 20 with a goods vehicle. And you'll see that the Sentinel, the green Sentinel wagon there, more recent version than the one there that's finished in red and it's now round on the far side of the arena, which is a 1920s type Sentinel. The Sentinel that you have there going round in the green one is pretty well identical to the last steam engines that Sentinels built. And they built those right up while they were still building. They decided to build diesel lorries as well as the steam wagon. Now here's something a little bit different. Coming past the commentary point now is a light green road roller. Well, this is a Zettelmeyer. And the Zettelmeyer, surprisingly enough, with a name like that, what do you expect? It's a German roller. Now, I'm not sure of the history of this one. Did this one come from Kent? Right. I only asked because there was one that I knew of down in Kent for a long, long time. Has it? So we've got at least two Zettelmeyers there in the UK. But there's only one of them that's in that condition, I can promise you. the Fowler road roller. And this road roller, you'll notice, has got some beautiful paintwork on the rolls, but not so much on the bodywork. In fact, the bodywork is as found in many respects, I would think. What paint you can see left on it, but the rest of it is nicely preserved under a good coating of oil and grease. But that's a working steamroller and no mistake. It's nice to see them in as found condition almost, because no steamer really is ever as found, because the steamers have to meet such stringent safety regulations that they've got boiler tests, they've got pressure tests, they've just about got everything that they have to go through before they can come out on the road. And quite rightly so, because these engines, each one is working somewhere between 125 and 200 pounds per square inch when it goes down the road. They don't need quite as much pressure just to tick over around the showground, but there's still enough pressure in one of those engines. If Daffodil decided to do something awful and go bang, none of us would be here on the side of the room. But it doesn't happen usually. Because our regulation for steam engines, every single one, is really severe in this country. And we're just getting them lined up now. Very nice up the road here. Really useful engines, because it was engines like this that could work around towns, work in confined spaces, and work, as far as steam engines went, economically. And later on in times, were even allowed to work with only one person controlling it. Little Invicta, manufactured by Adelings. Proudly there with the original Rochester address on the plate. Clayton and Shuttleworth. Well, they were engine manufacturers up in Lincoln, and Clayton and Shuttleworth made a lot of agricultural engines. They made a lot of stationary engines too in the earlier days. But there's, or portable engines as we term them in steam. There's a very, very nice example there of the Clayton and Shuttleworth. Now the little Foden went up here. So this, the Foden steam wagon, which has just gone past me in blue, that is what we term a 9-inch scale is a 3/4 size. That accounts for why it's such a dinky little steamer. But you look at that, and that is absolutely spot on. You could be fooled into thinking it was a Foden prototype for a small dust collection car. Because Fodens did make just about everything there was. From Basingstoke again, the Wallace and Stevens engine, it went straight over to the Isle of Wight where it worked. So it was never registered in Hampshire, it was registered on the Isle of Wight. and has spent its working life working over there on the island until it finally was brought back to the mainland in very, very poor, abandoned condition quite a number of years ago now, and it's been brought back up to better than new condition, really, and we're so pleased to see it here in the arena. Now the engine that I've actually got coming past the commentary point at the moment, there's a bit of a story attached to this engine. Well, there's a bit of a story attached to all of them. I mean, what do you expect? When was this one manufactured?
1912.
1912, so the engine's getting on a bit, isn't it? And, you know, it's a little bit of history there, but this history is shared with people. It's, engines are a bit like horses. In fact, a lot of horsemen used to be replaced. Their horses were taken away and let steam wagons given them, or steam engines to carry on the work with. And that was the way it was felt to engine drivers and engine men stuck with an engine wherever possible. Families were connected with engines. And you may notice that we've got a passenger on board there, sitting at the back. Now, I'm going to be very rude and tell everybody how old you are. You're 88, yeah? Goodness me, she's not ashamed of being 88. Good for you. And that was yesterday. So happy birthday for yesterday. You should have had a cake on the rally, you know. And she only today she discovered that this engine had a connection with her. It was once owned by her father, Bert Cutler, who used it for contract agricultural or maybe road haulage contracts.
Yes, this lady came to me. I was sweeping out the tubes on the engine, and she said to me, "Burrell engines are really good, aren't they?" And I said, yes, I'm biased, but I agree with you. And then she said, "My father owned an engine, a Burrell engine, and he used to take me for a ride in the bunker." And I said, "Oh, what was his name?" She said, "Oh, you wouldn't know his name." I said, "Well, try me." And she said his name was Cutler. I said, "Well, let me show you something," because I had a copy of the logbook up in one of the toolboxes, and I showed her his name, and it was 1944 when he owned it and he used to take her for a ride in it. So, out of the blue, suddenly you got a really local connection, and I'm actually thrilled to have that in the tender yet again, nearly 70 years later.
Back in the bunker. I'm not at all surprised. She's reported she now has a tender behind. I'm not surprised. Well, it's wonderful just to see that, you know, somebody can get a bit of pleasure out of Netley Marsh, and the rest of us are worrying about the weather. We've got someone having a wonderful time, courtesy of one of our enthusiasts. Thank you ever so much indeed. Right, well, that held up proceedings a little bit, but well worth it. And now coming towards us is the Ransom, Sims and Jeffries. Of course, we've held it up, so they're just finding out where all the gears are again. It's not always easy, you know, when you stop the steam engine. That's it, she's away. It's very similar to having a horse, you know, a steam engine. They get rather pernickety, some of them, and subject to a little bit of wear and tear from time to time. There we go, lovely. That looks like some fresh paint on that one. Oh, you cleaned it. 1917. And interestingly enough, on that steamroller that's going by, it's still carrying a piece of equipment which you can't see from the arena fence side. But as it goes round, you'll see there's a big lump behind the back wheel on this side, and that's the scarifier. And the scarifier was driven into the road. It had tips on it like pneumatic drills, long steel trips that were driven into the road surface. So the roller could grip up the road surface as it went along, and then it would be all ready for replacing a with tarmac with a new tarmac surface. Those were the days when roads were built, bedded and built and surfaced. Nowadays all they do is patch the holes and put a bit of surface on it.
Yeah, and then either stuff comes out or another pole.
Little labelling roller. Coming towards us now, we've got something completely different.
Like every time I go for a driving test now, I think, will I damage my suspension today?
It's the different side. And you'll notice there's no chimney on this one.
Broke two coil
springs. As it comes past,
I broke a coil spring.
It's got a very noisy.
That was about 200 quid's worth of work.
The boiler. Well, the reason for that was very, very practical. Because during wartime in this country, we actually needed still to use ploughing engines. And you can see this one is a Fowler ploughing engine. A very, very practical, long-lived vehicle. But when it couldn't pass its boiler test anymore, I just let it go by a little bit. Once the steam side of it got a little bit wonky, then you still needed a ploughing engine, because particularly down in this end of the world, engines like this were used for dredging as well. Dredging out canals and dredging out harbours. And because you've got the winch cable and the winching capability. And so that one had a diesel engine fitted. Many of them were fitted after the war and during the war with captured German diesel engines. But they've also carried other diesel. Fowler's actually lined up the conversion to these engines, and it was quite not uncommon to see a diesel engine carried this way on top of what was a steam engine underneath. So this is a diesel-powered steam ploughing engine. Very nice to see it there in working order. And at the show with us this weekend. And now on this end, you can see what goes in, why the engines are lined up in that direction. Because the water in the engine is something which is being boiled away all the time. The engine's being boiled away to make the steam. The water's being boiled away to make the steam. And that water has to be replaced regularly. If it's not replaced, you end up with trouble for the engine. The engine actually dropped what's known as a plug, which is a lead plug in the bottom of the engine, which stops it overheating and lets all the water rush out into the fire, puts the fire out, makes the engine unusable, but it stops it building up pressure and exploding. And that's something that you don't want to risk, and so you point the engine uphill if you have to leave it, because if it's facing uphill, the water is back towards the fire, and it's not anywhere where there's going to be any danger as an engine overheats. And of course, the object for the exercise is to make sure that these engines do not overheat.
My gosh, what a monster.
And that water tanker which is going round, it goes round every day, all day at the show, and it's supplying water to everything all the time, wherever there's steamer on site. And if the steamers don't need it, then the roadways need it is part of the hard-working team which keeps Netley Marsh actually running. An event running on behalf of local charities, which all these steam engineers, whether it be with miniatures or 6-inch size one here, or little 3-inch, there you go. Right in front, the 4-inch in front of the phone. So there we've seen 9, 6, 3 and 4-inch scales already going by. And there it makes you 3/4 inch, it's a 3/4 size Taskers, and Taskers was the firm who worked at Basingstoke. They were iron founders actually. It was a blacksmith founded them, the company, and he walked all the way up from the West Country and stopped and started his own factory at Abbott's Ann near Andover. There's a splendid little road train for you. Miniature engines under construction there, look. Here we have a holiday outing. Now the first showman's locomotive we've seen here today, albeit a slightly smaller edition, but once again, real live steam. These steam ploughing engines worked in pairs. There had to be 2 engines there, one to pull it in one direction and one to pull the plough in the other direction. And so these diesel engines, there would have been 2 at any time, because they couldn't have worked singly. Well, the dog's keeping up with things, keeping an eye on the situation. Now another showman's locomotive. This is Catalan. Very well driven too, you've got all that work done. You see, if you build a miniature steamer, you can keep it in the garage. It doesn't need a massive great barn to keep it in. And you can, when you're working on it, all the bits you can take it indoors and work on the kitchen table, you know, while the wife's out the way. It's an ideal process. So there's a lot more miniatures being built these days because it brings steam within the reach of enthusiasts who otherwise wouldn't be able to cope with it. little engine there where there's a little bit of tuition going on, advanced tuition there. The young man's pretty well up to scratch with that one. And it says a steam apprentice club. And they were a very, very active part of the steam preservation movement. It would teach people how to appreciate and how to look after steam engines. Now the little Bowden which is going past me, you'll notice it's a very, very short wheelbase, and this is a scale model, scale miniature, not model, so miniature. That would go on the mantelpieces and I won't do anything, but a miniature will actually work. And we've got four Bowdens, all in line across the arena there, and they're all miniatures. And the one alongside the arena ropes is a steam tractor. And this was designed to haul the load behind it, just primarily as a tractor, or even as timber tractors, extracting round timber, where a steam winch would be mounted in the box body on the back. I've seen some people just like you 5 minutes ago.